everybody, welcome back to the Dice Tower. My name is Zee Garcia.
And I'm Camilla.
Today we're taking a look at a trilogy of games called Kinfire Delve, with the first one here being Vainglory's Grotto. I'll give you that. The second one, Scorn's Stockade. And the third and newest, Callus's Lab. So all three of these are either solitaire or two-player games, cooperative games, in which you are going up against a big bad. But you can also combine these boxes and play 3 or 4 players cooperatively against any one of the baddies you have with any of the heroes that you have, okay? So having all 3 is a good way to give you a lot of variety. These characters are also featured in Kinfire Chronicles, so it's the same cast of characters, and while this game is a lot simpler than Kinfire Chronicles, it does share that world, it also has some of the same iconography, some of the same simplicity, some of the same ideas at play.
Yeah, and some of the same like card anatomy and things like that. If you're familiar with the Chronicles, you're going to see the not the correlation, but the similarities here. And the system, not in how it plays, but how it's built is familiar.
Some shared DNA there, of course. Same designers, same company, so that makes sense. Before we go too much further into this, I'm going to show you a little bit of how the game works in case you haven't seen it before. I'm going to be using the newest one, Callus's Lab, and I'm going to give you just an overview of some of the moving parts, okay? This is definitely not a learn to play. I'm just showing you so you have an idea of what we're talking about after that. So let's cut to the table. We'll come on back. We'll tell you what we think of this whole thing. The box we're going to be looking at here today is the newest of the 3. This is Callus's Lab. And in it, you are going to get Callus, the main baddie, and these 2 characters, the last 2 out of all 6. So to set up the game, you are going to pick how many players you want to play with. Obviously, you can play right out of this box with up to 2, but if you combine boxes, you can play with up to 4. You are going to shuffle up the Callus cards, and of the 3, pick 1 without seeing the other side and put that in the center. Put 4 of the cards around there, discard 3 here, put the rest of the deck in its location. You're also seeing, of course, a play mat here, which is not included in the box because it obviously would not fit in here, but you can get that as well. And then we've got everything else, a life tracker up there and some progress tokens and whatnot. We've got the dice. You're going to be drawing a number of cards based on the number of players. So if we were playing with 2, we each would draw 7 cards into our hand. And I'll just say we're doing that. You'll only see my area, but that's okay. So I have my character. And so, for example, I could be Valora there. I flip her over. She has an ability. And then I have my lantern as well, which I could recharge throughout the game, but it begins face down. And then I'm going to go ahead and draw 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and my the other player, my companion, draws 7 as well. And so what we're attempting to do in the game, in all 3 of these games, is plumb the depths of this well, and then go head-to-head with the big bad, with Callus or with Scorn or Vainglory, right? In order to do that, we are going to be eliminating these cards here, drawing replacements, and continuing to do that until we can no longer draw replacements. At that point, we are going to, once we cannot refill this up to 4, the 3 or 2 that are left over go away. We are going to put out these 4 cards instead and flip this over, and at that point, we're going for the big bad. If we can take him out before our own life is gone, then we are going to win. There's other ways you can lose during the game. The exhausted cards here possibly could make you lose. Various other things might make you lose. But that is the idea. And so on your turn, you are going to select one of these cards and deal with that card. So the cards come in 2 flavors. There's events, and then there are challenges. Mostly, they're challenges. All 4 of these are challenges. They break down into 3 types as well. Combat, puzzles, and then these obstacles. And so, let's say it's my turn. I have my hand of cards here. I'm going to select one of them. They have special abilities, ongoing effects, things like that. They have a difficulty number. They have a reward if you complete the card. You put this many progress tokens on here. They have a penalty if you don't when you attempt it, shown here. And you are trying to complete them, of course. So I pick the one I want. I'm going to then, if I want to, I can play a card. The card has to be of a matching color, and sometimes they'll be multicolored. This one's blue and green. So if I picked, say, this one here, Husk, the Husk there, I could play a blue card, and that would be this one if I want to. Playing a card is optional, though. This is going to have its own abilities. I also happen to, because I have this symbol here, I can shoot an arrow at something else and put one token on another card. I can be boosted. And so if I'm playing solitaire, I would boost myself with my own cards, but multiplayer, the other players would boost you. And so they could, from their hand of cards, play to boost you. So my companion here might play this card. You look at the bottom, you make sure there's a color match. White matches everything. And this says +2, plus it has a symbol special to them. This is going to let me draw a card, actually. And so they might say, okay, I'm going to boost you. They're boosting me, so I have 1, 2, 3, and I get to draw a card, which is lovely. And then I'm going to roll these dice. Rolling these dice, I'm going to check what else I hit on. Because I'm attempting a blue card, the blue sides will match. And then this has either that flame or this darkness, and this matches everything. This matches nothing. So I actually got +3 on that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I almost did it. I got up to 6 out of the 7 I would have needed. And so I put 6 progress on there, and then I suffer the penalty, which would be 1 hit to our health. This goes down to 9, and we're trying to avoid that from happening. I'm ignoring a lot of this text that might have modified that. I'm also ignoring that when you set up Callus, you're supposed to put 10 progress tokens right here, and many of the cards, including this one, eat away at that progress, and if it's all gone, all 10 that begins here, we lose. So I'm ignoring some of the text, some of the fine points. I'm giving you the broad strokes here. And so that's it. That would be my turn. Then this card is discarded. This card, my helper played, is discarded, and then it's their turn. So again, I pick a thing, I may play a card, that card may be boosted, I roll the dice, we see how we did. If a card is finished, let's say I had gotten this, then we clear it, I get the reward, which in this case says I bury 3 cards. I take 1, 2, 3 cards from here, and I bury them. This is completed, so it goes here. And then we reveal a new one, and we deal with that. Whatever it says, we do. In this case, the hungry chest eats progress from other things. Now, one of the big things to be aware of in this game is that you don't have a step in which you draw cards in this game. You don't normally draw back up at the beginning of your turn, at the end of your turn. It doesn't happen unless you choose to do that by exhausting yourself. You can do it whenever you want to, even if you have cards left. And if you choose to do that, you are going to draw one of these exhausted cards. You are going to deal with what it does. You're going to put it over here in the exhausted spots. And then if you had any cards left, let's say I had these 2 left, you discard them and draw back up to your hand size 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then you take a normal turn. That does not take your entire turn, but you may do it at the beginning of your turn. And again, these are big hindrances generally that might make you lose the game, but you're going to likely need to do it at least a little bit in order to draw new hands of cards and have a lot more power available to you. I'm glossing over a lot of the special abilities. This character specifically is going to have some tricky things that can sideswipe you sometimes, and of course I'm glossing over all these special abilities on these characters that let you support each other, that let you, in her case, do a lot of nice sniping of other things you're not currently working on by shooting arrows over there. She's got a bow that lets her, just by holding it in her hand, boost up cards that she's shooting with. All sorts of neat little synergies and abilities. And then, of course, when she is able to charge the lantern is the snipe. She is a relentless hunter. You get to pick a value for what X is, up to 7, and you do not roll the dice. So you get to say, I'm hitting this, it's missing 6. I hit it for 6. I'm sorry, it's got 1 and it's missing 6. So I hit it for 6, brings the total up to 7. It's completed. One of the lovely things about the way she works with some of the baddies is many of the cards want specific values, and if you go above and beyond that value, that is going to give you some hindrances. So this snipe card is tremendous for that specifically. So there you go. That is the general idea and flow of the game. Help each other, decide when you want to draw cards, complete these challenges, burn through this deck while salvaging your health so that you can take on the big bad and hopefully win the entire thing. So we have briefly in the past covered Vainglory's Grotto a little bit. I think we threw it into like a roundup or something like that. We did multiple games at once. But having not covered yet the other two, we figured it felt a little more natural to talk about the trilogy rather than, and here's two more, and there's another one in some video you're not going to find.
Right.
This is all encapsulating here the entire Kinfire Delve set.
System
series,
kind of? Yeah, right.
So, let's dive into it. I'm going to start with the look and the design, graphical design, and production of these games. And I think for the most part, I find it to be pretty spectacular.
Yes.
I think from the construction of these boxes, which are built like tanks.
They really are.
To the artwork, which is just gorgeous, blistering artwork all over the place. The foil stamping on a lot of the card details. The whole thing looks pretty good. I have a couple of issues. The dice are screen printed. They're honestly pretty bad. I think they are going to wear if you play this game a lot. And in fact, the dice you saw in the overview are pretty worn because we've used the same set.
Right. I think especially if you use it not on a mat or you're rolling something like that, or if you have long fingernails, anything like it's already starting to show scratches on it from we'll say 10 to 15 plays.
Right.
And this is a game that, we'll go into this later, but is very accessible to get to the table, so you're probably going to play it, if you have it, frequently.
Yes,
This is it is going to hit the table often if you like it.
Yeah, so that's definitely one of the things I would love for them to offer is a deluxe set of dice, which are, have an indentation, whatever. Yeah. They're like nicer dice, instead of these sort of very flat, screen-printed white cubes.
Right. And it does kill me because I think the dice are so well done visually. Like it has both the color and the symbol to indicate the hits. And I really think that's well done. I mean, immediately, it's not, is that blue or green? Oh, nope, all right, I'm going for squares. Something like that, so it's colorblind friendly as well as it's just in an instant you can tell what you rolled. So I love the design of them, just the actual quality was subpar.
Right. The other thing is the life die is 10. It's a 10-sided die, but it's a regular 10-sided die, and I would have loved a little extra effort and have it be a spin down.
I completely agree.
It's not, but you have to, you got to find it. Is it a deal breaker? Of course not. It's a 10-sided die. I can look for the 8 after I go down from 9. But it would be nice if it was a wraparound spin down, which I know that they, you can have that made.
Right. I almost would have, rather than a not spin down die here, just have given me a little single dial, that goes to 10. Something like that, know. But, that is annoying. I think the only other production quibble I'll have, I hate even calling it a complaint, but I don't love the insert for this. I think the one side that houses the dice and the 3 points is nice and compact, but then all the single hits that go underneath the decks.
Yeah, they sort of go in this channel at the bottom.
Right. If you pick it up, those fall out, and then your cards aren't in there, and then the box is coming apart. It's just simply a card game to have to be kept horizontal. Horizontal and not be able to be turned vertical is kind of a little bit of a kick. Like, that's kind of, and there's not really enough extra room in there to bag them either. So, I would like to see a little bit different in the storage capacity or storage solution. So,
now, having said all of that, let's talk about gameplay here. And we did mention the good things we liked about the production quality, but let's talk about gameplay here. I really, really like this game, and I think we should start with Let's start with the bad guys. How about that?
Okay.
Why don't we start with the bad guys, okay? So, one thing I found interesting is that they've gotten progressively harder through the trilogy, and that seems very deliberate. I thought Vainglory, the first one, is a lot less challenging, a lot easier to understand how the mechanisms work, but also to do well than Callous at the end of the spectrum here. And I think that's interesting because I love that if you did get into this game from the beginning, you and the game kind of grow together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they also each have a really interesting backstory and mechanisms that tie into that backstory. You know, one of the things I did was I came across the designer diaries from Kevin Wilson for the 3 sets here, and he spends a lot of time talking about discovering the mechanisms of the bad guys. What is it about vainglory? They're so vain, they want this perfection, but it's mutated perfection. And Scorn has this sort of, an elevated sense of justice that goes above and beyond anything logical or sensical. And then Callus is trying to do these experiments to heal something wrong within themselves. It's very interesting, and it's a lot deeper than you would think, and having read that enriches, I think, the experience. But I find them very distinct, and mechanically there's all these cool combos that you can discover where you pick up a card and you read, okay, whenever you discard a card, something happens. All right, sure. But then you'll see the parts that tie to that throughout the rest of the deck, the baddies deck, you know? I really think these are fascinating sort of, 57 card decks that work together very well.
Yeah, they really are. They carry so much personality in them. And I feel, so I played a couple times not having read into the background, into the lore, that kind of stuff. And I really felt the personality of the characters.
Right.
And then learning about it later, it's like, oh, that's what it was doing. I maybe felt that mechanism. Or, oh, hey, I was on the right track because I thought XYZ about them. And now I learn exactly why they're like that because here's the backstory.
Right.
And so I think it really just shows how much personality and thought is put into the lore and incorporating that into these individual decks, whether it be characters or the bad guys, because you already have a sense, a feel of them before you go and read the background.
Yeah, they're not faceless bad guys. No, they're interesting. They have something to say. There's a reason they're bad, right?
Right.
And I really think that's very well put together. Above and beyond that, mechanically, I love the fact that in this game, every time you play any one of these 3, you will not see 57 cards. You see a handful, because many of them you're burning off of the deck.
Right.
So it really is a different feel, a different flavor every time you play it.
Yeah.
There might literally be cards you could play any one of these 3 times, and the 4th play, you're like, I've never seen this card.
Right.
Because you kept burning it off the deck.
And they play into that as well with the way the cards interact with each other.
Right.
There's some in there that if it's like, if another of this same card is in play, then XYZ happens. So it has that little bit of tension, like, is that going to come into play? And then Callus's Lab, for example, I know he has a card that if you defeat that card, complete that challenge, you set it aside. And then if another card comes up and you also do that, so now you have this pair of defeated ones, then you instantly win. So it also plays within the own deck itself, but you might not even see that card. So you really have to know when that's worth it and when you discard versus when you complete a challenge. Again, just more ways that they're very individual, not just to themselves, but within each gameplay.
Right. All right, so switching now the lens to the other side and looking at the heroes here, they have a lot of interesting aspects in and of themselves. Many of them are battering rams. They're, out there front and center, putting out heavy hits. Sometimes they are about support, and they'll be like handing out cards, moving damage around, being tools of precision. Many of them honestly have a good combination of those things where you're managing what you're doing. Each one has their own kind of thing. Oh, I'm good at creating and giving cards to the other player so that you don't have to exhaust yourself. I'm good at redistributing. I know that's one you very much like, where they can just kind of move one of those tokens to a different card so that you can line up when you complete those things. Sometimes you want to sequence them right. I love that they all are, 18 cards, I think, and a few effects, and yet they feel very rich.
They really do.
There's a lot there. This manages to, with very clean graphic design, these are not, they're not overt. The cards don't feel heavy-handed. In fact, they feel outright dainty sometimes, these cards. Yet, they manage to be flavorful and make that person thematic. Once I can play a game with any one of these 6, and afterwards I can tell you how they work, who they are, kind of what they do.
Right. And that ties back into the bad guys as well as you play them and you're like, hey, I really want the tactician. I can't remember her name. Kaz Raz, it's the orc-looking character. She's a tactician.
Right.
And so really about moving stuff around, having those precision, but then also some big
there you go,
Naz. I was so close. Precision moments. So maybe you want her against somebody like Scorn to really have that manipulation and releasing all the prisoners that come in that one. Or maybe you want it to combat Callus and the wild experiments and the swingy nature of that deck. So I like that flexibility as well, that as you learn that personality and you learn, I want the tactician, I want the heavy hitter, I want the one that's going to give me the re-rolls, to combat those precision rolls that I need. You can find that. And that's another level of this game to explore and discover. The game kind of unlocks and shows you the world the more you play it.
And it unfurls more of what you can do if you go from having one of these boxes, any one of them, to all 3.
Right.
Because then you get to go, I can use Naz against Vainglory. And that's a little bit of a different concoction.
Right.
She doesn't come in that box. You wouldn't unless you bought 2.
Right.
You couldn't make that combination. So I like that. It gets a little... You start to see different things if you throw that character against a different baddie.
Right.
And see how they bounce off of that, how that combination works.
Right.
So I really enjoy that. I think that works very well.
One kind of... Probably as close to as a negative as I'm going to get on this, because I really do like this. Not to give too many spoilers, but I really, really like this series. The closest thing I could come to a negative is the lanterns.
Okay.
I wish that the lanterns, you had more opportunities to charge the lanterns. They are very powerful. I think I would even be okay if they were a little bit less powerful if I had more opportunity to charge it.
Okay.
In the big brother, big sister game here, Kinfire Chronicles, you charge that lantern, which is your big signature move, every time you have to draw a new hand. And so that rule, the first time I jumped into this, hung me up just a little bit because it is different. There are only specific, I guess,
when
rewards.
You see that symbol.
Yeah, when that symbol comes up, if you beat that challenge or something, a card in your hand will charge your lantern. But the most I've ever had my lantern in any game was 3. And that was huge. It is usually 0 to 1.
Yeah.
1 is pretty standard.
1's good, 2's great.
3 is just unheard of. That was a crazy swingy moment, kind of a gameplay. And so I do wish that we got to see those signature moves a little bit more, just because they're fun and they're neat combos, especially when I just played with, it's killing me, I can't think of the name, the support character one, the brainy guy, when he...
I'll look him up.
I forgot, now it's killing me. Here I am, all about the theme and I can't come up with it. Roland. When I was playing Roland, because I really get to play with my discard pile.
Right.
And I think that ended up being I think with one card I got a 10-point hit, because it was worth 5
huge.
plus 6 in the discard. So I understand why they don't trigger that often.
Right.
But if it was a little bit less, just to have that big power move would feel a little bit better. So I do wish that lanterns played a bigger role into this series, like they do in Kinfire Chronicles. Just got to see them more often. Immediately, I think, as I'm thinking of comparisons, it does compare to some of my favorite games. As I'm telling people about this, I'm like, hey, Marvel Champions. It kind of reminds me of that, with the individual nature of the baddies and the customization of baddies to goodies, that kind of goodies.
No deck building, but a similar idea, right?
And that's what I was going to say is one thing that I always tell people, but it doesn't have the deck construction or the deck building or anything like that. And that's one thing that as you're playing through, I think that first time you kind of have to remind yourself, this is my character and this is what they'll always be. And it really is about learning that character and what they can do. You're not going to get another card you're not going to buy a card from the market to hopefully build up your deck. You're not constructing them beforehand to make them your exact character. And that's not a negative for me. I think that's just a point to recognize. that it is what it is. It is this is your good guys, this is your bad guys. Which ones do you want? Let's go to battle.
No, that's a fair point. I think it is fun to think of these people as already heroic characters that have arrived at this point already having all their built-in tricks.
Right.
They know what they do. They know what they do well. And you can jump into it without modifying, without worrying about any of that. I find it to be a comfort. It's like an ease of entry thing. It's like, here's your 18 or whatever cards. That's you. That's everything you do in there. In some combination, is that all the tricks he or she have up their sleeves. Boom. I like that. I really enjoy that idea.
And that plays into what I was saying earlier, whereas if you like this game, it's going to hit the table a lot. This is a go-to pull off the shelf because it says 30 minutes, I think. It says 60 minutes. That's about right. A short game's going to be 30 because you didn't do really well. A long one's going to be an hour and 10, because you're really planning it out. But... again, it's quick to the table because you're not having to build. So who do you want to be? One of 6 characters. Who do you want to play against? One of 3 characters. Yeah. Shuffle decks and go. And so because of that, it's so easy to hit the table. And
it's a good return on complexity to game length to involved, sort of how involved you feel also.
Right.
Because the turns, as you saw in the overview, while I glossed over a lot of text, there's really not that many cards you need to be keeping track of that are face up and sort of affecting the game state. And your turns are incredibly easy, really.
Yeah.
You pick a thing and you go for that thing. It's all the other stuff that's tricky. Should you play a card or not? Do you just roll? Should you boost or not? But they're choices you make in order to decide, are we doing well? Are we doing badly? Right. Do I push? Do I not push? That's going to cost me one of my 10 very precious life points. Do we do that? Do we not do that? So that's where the tension and the difficulty, if you would, is not in learning and managing the rules. It's in managing how well you're doing.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like that it is, therefore, can become comfort food because it gives you all the trappings and the visual imagery of a big game with a lot of rules in a little package that you play in 60 minutes and is very manageable.
Yeah.
And I think that's very good. So, let's go ahead and get down to some scores here. Do you want to rank these as well first and then we talk about scores?
Okay. And to be clear, when we rank, we are ranking the entire box, right? So the bad guy that comes and the 2 good guys.
I'm doing this very loosey-goosey, and my score is going to reflect the line because I think of them, they're very similar for me. And by that I mean, not that the content is samey, is that the way I feel about one, I feel about all 3.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I'm merely ranking them because I like this box a little bit better, thematically, the characters, whatever. That's kind of what I'm doing.
It fits my play style.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
So for me, my number 1 is Scorn Stockade.
I'm there too.
Really? Okay, so this is my favorite
I'm there
one.
Specifically because of the good guys. I really like this combination. I like them individually. Yes. I really like Naz and the lucky guy, the Bard.
The Bard, right. The Bard has a lot of really neat dice mitigation type stuff.
So good.
And then I like Scorn the best of the 3. I like that baddie the best. My second would be the original here, Vainglory's Grotto.
So hard. That's actually, it hurts me. This is my third. I prefer Callous Lab over that one, I think.
Okay, then for me, this would be the last one, but it's your second.
Yeah.
And again, these are fractures of a point I think we're talking about here in between these. Okay?
And it's even just play style. You know what I mean? Coming down to it. It is that really is it. But
so rating the entire thing for me, I'm going to come down here at what I gave the original one. I believe is what I gave the original one when I first did it. I think the series has been tremendously consistent. It is a strong little series of card games. I'm giving the entire thing a 9. I very much would recommend, if you enjoy little co-op card games, that you check out any one of these. Just pick the one you want. I guess Scorn Stockade is a good one. The original one, Vainglory's Grotto, might be the best first pickup because it's a little less punishing. It's a little easier to maybe succeed, pull out a win. But whatever, do you. So yeah, 9 for me. Really great line of games. I want deluxe dice and a storage solution, and I'm in heaven. That's all I need.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. This is actually the first 10 I'm ever going to give. I don't ever know. I think I always said, like, I don't know if I can give a 10. What would a 10 be? A 10 would be Kinfire Delve. I absolutely adore this. All of my nitpicks are just that. They're just nitpicks, dream wish. You know, I wish that I could have deluxe dice. I wish that I had a storage solution. But those don't get in the way of my love of this game. Wow. It is so quick to the table, but it is so, what you said, that rewarding experience. If I want to play solo, I have very high standards, I guess, for a solo game, meaning I don't want to set up a bunch, I don't want to clean up a bunch, but I want deep gameplay. You know, this has those inklings of a dungeon crawler, which I love because you are going down in the well and coming across all these challenges until you can even take on the big bad boss at the end. So
before you can even see them.
Before you can even see them and know what their challenge is going to be. They have their individual personalities, but even in that individual personalities, they all have 3 end cards. So replayability, if you have played them a bunch, you still don't know which one it is. You know, so as you're attaching bad guys to Scorn here, you don't know if that's, or challenges, you don't even know that's going to come into play because you don't know what card was chosen. The personalities shine in the individual characters, and I love, while it reminds me of some of my favorite games, it sets apart by not being those games. As in, it's not Marvel Champions where I have to spend a bunch of time deck constructing or deck building of Dune Imperium, things like that. So it reminds me of these things by giving me a completely different experience. I feel like I'm in the world, and then I learn the lore, and it just absolutely immerses me, and it does it with a couple cards.
I think one of my favorite things about this is almost like it's an imperceptible thing almost, is it shows the mastery of a designer like Kevin Wilson, who's been doing this a long, long time, that he wasn't tempted by fancy mechanisms. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing here that is flashy for the sake of being flashy. Mm-mm. Most of the mechanisms you will come across in this game are tried and true, workhorse type stuff. How can I explain this thing? Well, you could roll dice, or you could do this fancy thing where you organize cards and then you rotate it and the card is pointing. No, we can just roll dice. It's clean. It's workmanlike in its ways. You know what I mean? And I respect that in a way where I'm like, okay, I'm glad you didn't decide to go whimsical, and you kept the whimsy in the theme. The mechanisms get out of the way.
Right. And then the art on it is just gorgeous without being gaudy or too flashy, you know?
Yeah.
It's just, it's perfection. I really, really love this. So Kinfire Delve to me is a 10. It just knocks it out of the park on everything. And I am only falling more and more in love with it as I've played it over the last 6 months. It just keeps growing. There's no part of me is getting tired of it. So, yeah. So, Kinfire Delve.
There you go.
10.
All right, everybody. That is going to do it for our coverage here, then, of Kinfire Delve. Make sure you check this one out if you can get your hands on it. And that's going to do it. That is a seal of excellence from us here for the Trilogy of Games.
Seal of Perfection. Do we have that?
Seal of Perfection.
Seal of Perfection.
Maybe we'll make one specifically for you, and you can use it once.
Works for me. Right now.
Great. Yeah, okay. Anyway, that's going to do it, everybody. My name is Zee.
And I'm Camilla.
We'll see you on the next one. Defend the well.
You're going into the well.
Defend it.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower. We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.
Looks really clean and lovely and well put together. The second thing that caught my eye was that it looks like Wingspan.
Yeah, it definitely feels bigger than a deck of cards.
Yeah.